Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Last Place Fantasy Football Podcast. I am your co host, Josh, along with my co host, Ethan, and we're here to give you the next episode of Rookie Month. And this time, it's all about the QBs. But first, Ethan, my man, how you doing today?
I'm doing good. Just ready to talk more fantasy football.
Yep. So by this point, you've probably already seen our running backs and tight ends episode. So
And big
basically,
board.
yep, and the big board. So you already see who we're kind of going, who we're already going with, who we're kind of feeling. And we want to explain the quarterbacks because I will say, as far as the quarterback position this year, is it way better than last year? 100% yes. However, it's where do you like each person? I think there's been a lot of flexibility
Well, it's
and
about
definitely differing opinions for sure.
it's about two big W's. It's about who and when.
Yep. Who, when, and I think definitely where I think has really caused a
And
there's
maybe
definitely a
even
three
why.
horse race for sure.
At this point, maybe even why.
Yeah, maybe even one. So we'll see. So unlike some our big board where we went bottom to top, I think let's just start from the top down here, Ethan. So
Well, do we want to talk about the trade first?
yes, thank you. I like how I brought it up beforehand and
Right,
completely
literally right
forgot.
before we started, and
Yeah,
then
right. And
it's
yeah,
okay.
yeah, completely forgot. So we
So
actually
we
have a
had a trade.
dynasty trade to talk to
Yep.
everyone about, and it involves Ethan. So Ethan, tell us that trade.
Hi, Ethan, your resident trade expert here, since it always feels like I'm the one talking about trades. Um, Yeah, I made a trade today with another team in our league. I had an extra third round pick for next year. I thought it was the third for this year, the 301, and not mine for next year. So that actually turned out way better than I thought. But I traded a third round pick next year for Russell Wilson.
I actually I love the trade on both sides. No, I to be honest with you, I like it more on yours.
Yeah, I think so too.
I think so. Just to give everyone context here, in our rookie draft, Ethan now has the 102. He got it in a different trade involving me, our league mate Alex, and he was able to secure it. Originally, we thought, man, this is going to be for CJ Stroud. It could be Anthony Richardson. Who knows at this point? But I love the fact that there is a high chance you get a rookie quarterback, largely because, and we all say that is because he did have Tom Brady and he retired. So there is a gap there. I love the fact of getting Russell Wilson for you is because you're able to at least stabilize the position. Your team already with Pittman, with Godwin, with
The
JT,
church.
yep, and the church, and on top of that, you got Algier. Like your team's good enough that it can win without the quarterback needing to be the X factor. And
Right.
so that you now that you have Russ is at least going to stabilize it. And if he does it under Sean Payton, just consider him washed immediately. If the best case scenario is you have someone for the first 6 weeks of the season, the worst case scenario is that you only gave up a 24 third round pick.
Right. So overall, I'm pretty happy
Yeah.
with it. I'll even like stabilize because I do believe in Sean Payton, but if I don't stabilize, then with the 102, more than likely it's going to be a QB. So I've
I
got options now in comparison to before this trade when I had no options.
Yeah, it at least opens you up to where BPA is available.
Right.
And now the question I do have for you is where do you see so far Russell Wilson this year? Like where are your early in the middle of the off-season prognostication for Russell Wilson?
Ooh, I mean, I think year two with a vet, offensive minded head coach, I think he could bounce back into like a top 12 QB. I'd say that's my hope. Realistically, I mean, maybe top 14. So hope
Yeah,
for
I would
maybe
say
top
that top
10,
14, top
realistically
15.
top 14, yeah, 15.
Yeah, I think that's very realistic. And I mean, let me bring up the Denver Broncos schedule right now, because they do get some pieces back, like a Tim Patrick, and they definitely bolstered that O line. So I do think, especially if we're going to look at the, as I pull it up very quickly. So we're looking at Raiders, Commanders, Miami, Chicago, Jets, Kansas City, Green Bay. You so with those some of those some of those defenses this early season. Las Vegas, I don't know how good they'll be. They're going year 2 on their transition. Washington might be a tough one. We'll see. Miami for sure will be a tough defense. Chicago, we'll see how they are 4 weeks into the season. The Jets obviously is going to be a very tough defense, and Kansas City is also sneaky tough. Then Green Bay, and then Kansas City again. So you can at least, I would say, at least for the first 3 weeks, things can look very good for you by getting Russell Wilson now. I don't think knowing Sean Payton's offense, he still loves to run the ball just to help the quarterback out. It won't be like the Drew Brees. We're gonna go for like 60,000 yards in 3 games kind of situation.
Right.
But if you get bounced, I mean, all you need is 200 yards and 2 touchdowns to get a decent fantasy output. And
Yeah.
I think
I
that's
mean, that's
worth it.
probably sitting around 20-ish points because you'll get
Yeah,
some rushing yards too.
yeah, and that I think that's worth the third round pick right there.
Yeah, so I'm happy about it. What I've been frustrated about is people who are not in a QB super flex who hog good quarterbacks and sit on the bench and do nothing and have astronomical asking price for them. If you do that, you suck and everyone in your league hates you, and you probably lose the league every year. So you can go suck a rock for me. And with that, I think
That's
we should get into the
that
QB.
sound yeah, let's that sounds a little personal. But yeah, so
Personal,
going
true. Sounds like we're saying the same thing.
I can 100% tell you it's not me. So let's go into our rookie quarterbacks this year. So there's only going to be a few that we're talking about. Obviously, if y'all saw our rookie board, we had only 4 quarterbacks listed. Those quarterbacks being Bryce Young in tier 1, first round lock, Anthony Richardson and CJ Stroud in tier 2, both first round locks. And then our last two is Will Levis and Hendon Hooker. Now, I think we should just kind of go super in depth as to where we think the how each person can perform and at least where we see the fit. Because I think, especially to where they all went, the fit is the most important thing. So let's
Yeah,
start with Bryce Young, who drafted number 1 overall. I think was very expected by when the pick came in, and I really like the fit considering the offense and the talent that's around him, and then who is the head coach there. And now, is the size an issue? I would have to say yes, but and this is something that I said during the live stream, and I do want to reiterate it because it's something that I didn't consider when watching the tape on Bryce Young, is that you you have to consider the players around him too, especially last year, because that was the most non-typical Bama looking receiving core that you've seen in a very long time. And I had to kind of double check myself and go, oh, hey, man, maybe he had to do this because this wasn't open or this player wasn't getting open. And so now thinking about that and now he's going into a situation. There's really no clear number one, but I think he's already kind of
yeah.
used to that. And then now they're going to be building the team while he's there. Ethan, how do you feel about Bryce Young within the Carolina Panthers system?
Yeah, I like the system a little bit more for CJ Stroud. I thought with just how aggressive he is, it would have fit with Frank Reich, because he's really good at elevating high ceiling QBs. But I mean, in terms of Bryce Young, not that he's a bad quarterback. Obviously, I think he's the highest graded for me in this one, out of this class. I agree with you. There's not really a number one wide receiver there, but I think just with how talented he is and with the system that Frank can cook up, they should be okay. They still have O line issues, so that is one thing about Carolina. But I think he's far and away the best QB and will be taken 101 or 102.
Yeah, and I think in that situation, it's very much dependent on what your team needs are. If you're picking at the 101 or 102, I think
Yeah, and
with
people forget that he can run.
yep, he can run, and I also think Carolina's situation is not as bad as people are realizing. It's sneaky good, to be quite honest with you. So, I mean, if you think of just receivers, we're talking DJ Chark, Adam Thielen, Terrace Marshall. Like that's
And
your
Hayden
top
Hurst.
three. And who?
Hayden Hurst.
Oh, that's right. Hayden Hurst is your tight end. Your running back is Miles Sanders.
Yeah.
On
So
top of
it's
that,
not a bad offense.
it's not a bad offense at all. In fact, I really do believe we're probably going to see Miles Sanders get a lot of catches out of the backfield too, considering it's Frank Wright, and Frank Wright kind of knows that kind of knows that was a part of that Eagle system that helped make Miles
And
Sanders
they
very good.
they went out and they drafted, was it Tank? Is that right?
Nope, that was Houston, but I will pull up the Panthers.
Yeah, who did they pull up? Was it Minga? No.
Yes, Jonathan Mingo. That was the one.
Was
That was the
Mingo?
one
Okay.
dude. Yeah, and we'll talk
Yeah.
about him in our receivers episode, but that's I love that pick.
Yes. So that kind of helps boost it a little bit for me too. I really liked Mingo, and I was a little bit higher on him than some of the other wide receivers. Um, in terms of where he was drafted,
Yeah,
kind of in those middle rounds.
definitely
Um,
higher for me
I
as
think he
well.
can work for Carolina.
Yeah, so what I love here is, I mean, obviously Bryce Young, and then there's Mingo. I love the draft pick of Chandler Zavala because he played with Ike Ekwonu
Ike
at
Ekwonu. Yep.
NC State. So that
Yep.
chemistry is there. The left side of the line's done.
Yep.
Like call it done, bada bing, bada boom, and then obviously, I mean, Jamie Robinson's a good pick, but that's defense. But as far as like Mingo, Zavala, and now Bryce Young, I think Bryce Young is definitely one of the most pro-ready quarterbacks. I don't know if he'll light the world on fire, but he's all I can already see him in like top 20 consideration, like right off the get-go. And
Yeah.
I
Like I
think
think there's
that's
very
what
few. There's very few guys where you watch them and you're like, he's just that dude.
yeah,
Like I was worried about Joe Burrow, even though everything you saw in film showed that he was just that dude. I had the same thing with Bryce Young, where it's like everything shows me he's that guy,
yeah.
but it, you know, but I didn't see a lot of things I didn't like on film. He comes from a good system. He
It's a
developed a lot
pro-ready
of his game.
system.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he should be able to transition fairly well. He's got a great coach to build him up. Everything that usually goes wrong. So, like, look at Baker Mayfield. You had questions about him. Yeah, he was really talented, but he also went to a system where he didn't have a coach that was going to build him up until
That's the fancy.
yeah, until
And
Stefanski. But then
then the next
Stefanski wasn't a QB friendly coach.
yeah,
So it's like
on the fantasy
it's a
side
different
for sure.
situation.
Yeah.
But I like him. I like where he's at. I like what he learned in college. I think he's going to be good.
Yep. I think
He
he's
will be the best rookie of
yep,
this class.
100%. So let's go down to the next person. I think a lot of people might have issue with this. As Anthony Richardson is in our tier 2, and
Well, we're
I
just going to have a discussion about it.
let's have a discussion about this because I
Yeah,
think this is I don't want to say polarizing because I think a lot of people it's not so much whether he's going to be good or bad, it's whether it's going to be how good can he be. And it's whether the difference is he going to be good or is he going to be great, I think is the discussion around him.
right.
Anthony Richardson, drafted 104 to the Indianapolis Colts, probably enters the best situation into the best situation. Alec Pierce, Michael Pittman are your receivers. They drafted Josh Downs as well. Your running backs,
Mhm.
Jonathan Taylor, who was
Love
the
Josh Downs.
Yep, we'll talk about him, but I love Josh Downs. And then you still have a pretty solid O-line, and now you have Shane Steichen. I I think he Anthony Richardson's not our QB2 if he doesn't get picked by, the Colts. I think he had to get picked by the Colts in order for this to be as high as he is. I think as far as on the fantasy side of things, the QB running will keep him relevant 100%. But in order for him to take that leap, that like stratospheric leap, uh, for uh for being a top QB, that's where the work kind of needs to get done.
Yeah. Well, and with him too, like we say a lot here, draft aliens and prosper. But that saying is a double-edged sword. So yes,
Yes.
he is an alien. Yes, he has a lot of potential. Yes, he has a lot of hype around him. But, and there is always a but with the aliens, he has to do it at the NFL level. He was so good at Florida, and that's great, but there's a lot he still needs to add to his game. There's still
Yes.
issues on that Indianapolis team that they're going to have to build around. So it's not like this guy's got everything we want to see and he's going to come out and just be a freak. Like, yes, that works out because look at Josh Allen, look at Patrick Mahomes, arguably a freak in a different way, and Lamar Jackson, freaks in a different way, and Jalen Hurts. Sorry, we got to give flowers to all the aliens,
Yeah, gotta give him
but
flowers.
but you have to translate it, and if
Yep,
you don't, you're just another alien.
exactly. And especially the development is so important when it comes to this. And so this is a big test for Shane Steichen, but we also just saw him develop under with the Nick Sirianni, Jalen Hurts, and even before then the Justin Herbert a little bit. So I think it's there. I personally do think it's there. Now, here's where we think. Personally, here's what I believe Anthony Richardson does still have to work on. I do think his feet sometimes gets him in trouble, and also I think sometimes that
I don't like his throwing motion.
the throwing motion is a little weird.
It's his
However,
elbow.
yeah, however, he what that will get fixed with his feet. Like I think his lower body needs to get that fixed, and then the arm will kind of follow through. And until the feet are fixed, I think you're going to get a lot of the inaccuracies that we were kind of seeing like on tape, to where it's like you should be able to make that throw, and like he has what it takes. I think the biggest thing about this is that it's all teachable. It's not like something where it's like, ooh, I don't know that this can't be taught. However, if you're going to draft Anthony Richardson, you better have a plan in place because I don't think he's going to be the top quarterback y'all think he is starting
Yep,
day one. Year two and year
it'll
three,
come.
however,
It'll come.
that's what you gotta like think about when it like that it's a 2 year long play.
Yes. So if you're good at QB and you want to take on a project, he's your project. But
Yes.
you can't draft him and be like, Anthony Richardson is going to be the QB my team's been looking for. I'm
Yes.
sorry to be the one to tell you.
Yep. And I actually to give personal experience, I tried to do that with Zach Wilson.
Yep.
And I
Yep.
think that was one of the biggest mistakes for me the first year of our dynasty startup is because I banked on, rookie quarterbacks are doing pretty well. And then that's when I started realizing, no, you have to understand what system these rookies are coming from and what they're going into. And if there isn't that much of a connection, then it's going to take time to transfer. Now, when it comes to Florida system, I don't remember the coach's name off the top of my head. And then between him and Steichen, I think there might be a couple similarities, but it's not going to be much. But that system is built for Anthony Richardson to
Mhm.
at least use the QB running game to
Yeah.
at least
Well,
open the field
there's
and help him catch him up to speed.
there's just a lot of systems that aren't good for building quarterbacks. And like Atlanta would have been another one if Anthony Richardson had gone to Atlanta. That's not a good situation to build somebody that doesn't have it.
No,
Ritter
especially yeah.
Ritter is going to work there because there's not a lot of things he needs to develop. He came from a good system at Cincinnati. He had a lot of tools that they liked. They just needed to tweak a couple of things with him here and there.
Yeah,
But it's
and
not a situation where they can build a QB. Sorry, go ahead.
yeah, I was also gonna say that especially with Ritter, like, I don't think Ritter would have been good starting day 1 in that system either, especially
No,
since Arthur Smith's system is such
no.
like, the quarterback has to know things, like, there is a base of
Yep,
understanding that has to be met, and
100%.
and it's how you develop your quarterback to get to that level. And going back to Zach Wilson, I still think that's kind of the big reason Mike LaFleur got fired as the OC, is because there was a adherence to this is my scheme, this will work, and then not meshing it with the quarterback who's coming into the system. And
Right.
that's why we were having such like big problems where you were you were trying to make Zach Wilson throw as few as possible. You were trying to like give him all these really tough high level throws, tight windows. And I'm like, that's not how you're going to learn. Yes, you'll kind of like figure things out here and there. And it also sounds like there was some other stuff on the field, off the field. But um I that integration of how you're going to help your quarterback get into it is such it's the most important question you have to answer.
Yep.
So at least with Anthony Richardson, we have a history of Steichen moving into the QB power, QB run game with Jalen Hurts. So there at least is a at least a direct example of this could working. Now,
Right.
personally, I think I would not be shocked to see top 15 for Anthony Richardson. It may not look pretty though. This may look like Jalen Hurts' first year as a starter, to where
Yeah.
it's like, hey, he's not throwing the ball really well, but man, the running game is going to keep him like
Yeah, but he can
in
make
fantasy
plays.
circles. Yep, but he can make plays. And
Yeah.
then year 2, year 3, and that's
Well,
what you're really hoping for.
speaking of bad systems, let's talk about CJ.
Whoo! Let's talk about CJ Stroud because as far as a bad system, it was the Houston Texans before they were able to get Nick Casario and D'Amico
Yeah.
Ryans to be the head coach. CJ Stroud, the shocker at the second overall pick in the draft because the did a beautiful smokescreen.
They baited and they switched,
Yeah, a very large bait with a very large switch. And now CJ
followed by
Stroud,
another large bait and switch.
yes, in getting Will Anderson. So CJ Stroud enters Houston Texans. Most likely will be start QB1 without a doubt. I mean, I think he can beat Davis Mills right off the bat.
Yeah.
Now, I think with Stroud, and the big reason why we had him at and tier two is because the Houston Texans are still there's still multiple players away, whether that is O line, especially the right side of the O line, whether that is we'll see what happens with Damian Pierce. There isn't a clear number one wide receiver or tight end. So there's still a lot of pieces that need to be done or need to get figured out before we throw them into the tier one status. But make no mistake, if CJ Stroud's going to be very, very good.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely like the talent. I like the potential a lot. The biggest thing for me is I do not think that the majority of defensive minded head coach like that approach works. So I'm worried about his development. Yes, he's a freak of a player, but there's also a talent deficiency there. Obviously we saw the article where he's like, go tank. That was, kind of a cool moment for them to partner up and be partnered in rookie minicamp. I think he is a large sleeper um,
Yeah.
in terms of the chemistry that they're going to build in camp together. A la look at Desmond Ritter and Drake London last year.
Hmm.
Um,
Yep.
but the main question is, does he figure it out in a system that's not necessarily set up for him to prosper?
Yeah.
That's
I
just
mean,
a big question.
that's a very
He's
big
talented
question.
enough to do it.
Yeah. like our issues, and this is going to be a very big theme, especially with the next two quarterbacks. Our issue is not necessarily with the player; it's the people around the player. And the Houston Texans,
Follow the lesson we've learned the hard way, Josh.
yes, the lesson we very much learned the hard way. So, I mean, not only are they getting Will Anderson, but the Texans also got Juice Scruggs. He's a guard from Penn State, and then they got Jared Patterson in round 6. So theoretically, your line could legitimately look Tunzel, Kenyon Green, and then you'll probably put Jared Patterson at center and Juice Scruggs at guard. So if that's the case, it's a very young line, but can be good later on, kind of like what we were
Yeah,
talking about with Anthony Richardson. So because of that, I don't like if you're gonna draft CJ Stroud, you better be prepared to take all the lumps year 1, year 2.
yeah.
Because
Well,
I
and to take it back to something that happened with us, Josh, the example I'll bring up is Algier from last year. Because if
Yep,
y'all remember, I did nothing but talk about Tyler Algier after the draft. But you got to think here's a guy, a big mountain of a man who fits exactly with what the coaching staff wants to do, exactly with the system that they want to run. And then you add a little bit of talent into that, and you get 1,000 yard rushing rookie, 1,000 yard rushing rookie running back. And so that's just what you got to think about when you're making these picks is okay, yes, every one of these guys that gets drafted is a good football player. Like, let's just get that out of the way.
yeah.
They're the less than 1% for a reason. Okay. But are they going into a good system? Are they going into a good coaching staff that's going to support them? Do they have talent around them? Doesn't matter the position. It can be a running back. Do they have a good offensive line? The answer for the Falcons last year was yes, a top 5 one.
Yep.
Okay, so for this QB, does he have good wide receivers? Does he have a good tight end? Does he have a good line?
Is
Answer on
everything in
most of those
place for
questions is
him
no.
to execute?
Exactly. Because you build your team and then you get a QB. That's how you win.
Yep, and I mean, let's think of all the examples around it. So, I mean, Mahomes already had Tyreek Hill, Kelsey, Sammy Watkins around
Yep.
that time. I mean, Herbert literally,
And a
literally,
serviceable
yeah,
offensive line.
yep, serviceable, exactly. Herbert walked into
A good offensive line,
good offensive line, a top running back,
a Hall of
and
Fame wide receiver.
yep, and a really good Mike Williams. Let's think who else. Josh Allen. Josh Allen is the one they had to kind of build with him in that process, and then they got Diggs, and that
Yeah, but then
immediately
they traded for
helped.
Diggs, and it was kind of,
Yep.
the rest is history.
And Lamar, even though obviously there's the whole like wide receiver discussion,
They
like
drafted Mark Andrews.
they drafted Mark Andrews, they had J.K. Dobbins, and even then like Hollywood Brown still serviceable, and then Bateman
Bateman.
is
Yep.
definitely still a wait and see, but he looked very good in the
He
limited
did
time
look
he was
good
out there.
after Hollywood left.
Yeah, so you definitely you can't just imagine that with these quarterbacks that
Well, Jalen Hurts, come on, Flowers. They had a
you were
monster
exactly
offensive
right.
line
Jalen
and
Hurts.
then
All
traded
I
for
think
AJ
is
Brown.
AFC. I just realized all I think is AFC. But let's go. Jalen Hurts. He already had a top 3 offensive line. You
Yep.
had Miles Sanders, who was
Yep.
solid, and then you had Devontae Smith, who's still good. Jury's still out how good he's going to be.
And then that's
And
year one. And then you trade for AJ Brown.
then you trade for AJ Brown. Goddard is still a top tight end, and then the system's built in place.
Yep.
So like there's with like especially with Stroud, I would say you have to start looking at Stroud when the Texans make a power move or if someone develops. It's very much dependent on whether does Damian Pierce become the top guy? Does he not get hurt for 6 weeks or however long
Yeah.
he was out for?
Well, let me
Does
tell you, man. You you can talk about Stroud next year when Deep gets cut and they try and bring him home. And we can start talking about CJ Stroud
I will
when you see
say
people coming in
it
and
might
other
be
free agents coming in.
all I have to say is it might be rough for
Mhm.
uh for Houston this year. Make no mistake, there is a receiver that CJ Stroud is very familiar with is going to be worthy of that top 5 consideration.
Oh, you're talking.
Yes. There is a
This is
legitimate
true.
possibility. If so, and the person we're talking about is Marvin Harrison Jr., which
Yep.
if you don't know about him, just
Best
watch
wide
his
receiver in
highlights.
college football. Yep.
Yeah, he was absolutely the best receiver in college football last year and will be this year. So it's that level of player. Once, like, you have to find that with Stroud. Now Stroud is still going to execute. He still has Mechie. He still has Tank Dell. He still has Nico Collins. So it's not bad, not elite, however.
Yeah.
And I think
You
it's
need a playmaker
yes,
at QB, period.
Stroud personally, and I think based on what Ethan and I are saying here, if Stroud gets that alpha, Stroud will shoot up immediately among like
Because
fantasy draft or like fantasy draft boards.
who are the teams that do well, right? So you think of like your Travis Kelsey and Patrick Mahomes. You think
Yep,
of your back when the Bucks won the Super Bowl, Chris Godwin and Tom Brady, and you can even throw Mike Evans in there
yep.
too. And then you think of like old school, like Matt Ryan and Julio Jones.
And
Like,
even before then, Matt Ryan and Roddy White.
yeah, Matt Ryan and Roddy White, or Matt Ryan and Tony Gonzalez. You know, you have to have that guy, Lamar Jackson and Mark Andrews, Jalen Hurts and AJ Brown. You know, like you have
Josh
to have
Allen, Stephon Diggs.
exactly. Um, so without that guy, you're limiting your QB's potential because there's an element of football where it's like everything's breaking down, but I trust this guy so much that I don't even care. And then that's where all of your Hall of Fame highlight reels come in.
Yep.
That's not something that's drawn up. It's literally my play just broke down, but I'm trusting that you're better than this guy. And then you see something absurd.
Yeah, and the biggest thing to also know is not every play hitches off to perfection. There will be
Yep.
improvisation there. And what we saw, and I like to bring that up, is because that was a big issue with a lot of people that a lot of people had for CJ Stroud all season. But then you go to the Georgia game in the semi final, and the improvisation, the like
Yeah, he
running more
was
to extending
slinging, bro.
plays, it was a completely different player. And especially for Ethan and I,
Yes.
that's the player we're believing in. Now,
Yeah.
he does need the alpha, which is why we're harping so much on the players around him. But CJ Stroud,
Yeah, because he had what,
high
Bobby
level, yeah.
Harrison Jr. and JSN
Yep.
at that time.
Yep. Jason didn't even play too. It was really just Marvin Harrison
Oh,
last year.
that's right.
So
That's right.
with this in mind, Stroud is a very good pocket quarterback, 100%. He can run to extend the play. Does he need to do more of that? Sure. But the accuracy in the throwing is fantastic. And once you get the guy to basically help
And,
take him to the next step, whether that is a D Hop, whether
mhm,
that is a potential Marvin Harrison Jr., we don't know. Man, then that's when things are going to look really good on a fantasy perspective from Stroud.
mhm.
As far as
And a
right now,
big thing too,
yeah,
whoever you are targeting, the biggest thing you need to be doing is following what's happening in rookie minicamp. Rookie minicamp is
100%.
happening now, and OTAs are happening now. Their impressions are being made now. What's concerning me about CJ Stroud is I'm not hearing anything.
Yeah.
So Bryce Young, I've heard absolutely phenomenal. I've watched some of his practices, read what's going on over in Carolina. He's it sounds like everything we thought he was going to be so far. Anthony Richardson, I've heard pretty much what we all
Yeah.
know to be true of him, which is stand up guy. Stand
Yeah.
up guy. He's winning the team over. A lot of potential,
Yep.
but again, we still have questions about him. So make sure you're following him because CJ could be doing well, could be doing bad, but no one's talking about
And
it. And
definitely,
that should be
yeah,
something to look.
it is. I do know that I think D'Amico Ryan said that he won't they're not going to let CJ Stroud talk till training camp, just because of how much like the SR2 scores and all that, the S2, sorry, not SR, but
Yeah.
all the pre-draft like kind of like hubbub like really kind of put him in a weird light. So they're just like, you know what, we don't even need to
Yeah.
worry
And you
about
need to
that.
protect your guy.
exactly, and those things do go a long way for sure. Now speaking of
But
people
people
who
still talk about other players outside of, and that's the last thing I'll say
yep,
about him.
absolutely. Now speaking of people who have a long way to go, let's talk about our next quarterback.
Yeah, Mr. Levis,
Yep,
come to the
Will
stand.
Levis. So he was drafted second round to the Tennessee Titans. We have him in tier 3. Ethan, care to elaborate why tier 3?
Yeah, I think the consensus that the 3 of us came to on him was we like Will Levis. There's some injury stuff that happened which caused his fall, which we didn't learn about till after he got drafted. So
Yep.
really thankful for the, you know, reporting and clarity of what's going on around players before we're just like, what the heck is happening? But that's what happened to him. He
Yeah,
had a tough
that's what
injury,
happened.
and
He
that's why he fell.
he also basically another big point of context is that he got a brand new offensive coordinator really late into the college typical offseason because
Yeah,
his offensive coordinator left, I want to say in like March, which that typically doesn't happen in college. Like, so that was kind of an anomaly. And the offensive coordinator that really helped him out was Liam Cohen, who became the Rams offensive coordinator this
right.
past year. And then they grabbed a guy, Rich Gangarello. Now, besides the fact that it was really late in the process, it does apparently, especially on film, it does seem like what Scangarello was looking for in a quarterback and what Will Levis was didn't match whatsoever.
I
So
agree.
a lot of people,
But
including myself, would say throw out the 22 tape, personally.
yeah, so now with context aside, the consensus is all right, he's healthy now, he's a good player. We like what he brings to the table. He's in a weird situation in Tennessee because
Very
he's kind
weird.
of like Bryce Young, where he doesn't have a lot of talent there. I mean, all he really has is the king. Now that'll be good for him in terms of all the pressure isn't going to be on him. But where the pressure does come in is he still has to beat out a vet and someone who's been in the system for a year in order to get his opportunity.
Yeah.
So he's like a let's see what he does player. But go ahead, Josh.
Yeah. So, I mean, kind of like the CJ Stroud situation where may not be enough guys around him. I think the same could be said for Will Levis, but I think it's because people are leaving. And largely the
Yeah.
reason is because we do envision the Tennessee Titans being within a really transitional period for at least the next like 2 years. That the Derrick Henry getting older, so they can't rely on him for much longer. And on
Yeah.
top of that, after Derrick Henry, like what else are you going to do? Because you have Traylon Burks, which I think to say his rookie season was disappointing at
Yep.
best. And then you do have a couple other players that you drafted that could be very interesting. The talent's just not there yet. So now, not only for Will Levis, there's a lot of things we like. There are a lot of things we don't like. Like there is a lot of bad habits.
Yes.
Unfortunately, he kind of picked up
Yes.
because he had to do everything at Kentucky. That has to get unlearned. I think especially deals with his feet. He doesn't really kind of like drive through throws. He's kind of like holding it back, and so he's kind of going too much all arm is from what I saw. And then he also does bail out of pockets a little too early. Now that's kind of that one can be debated, but that one is personally just my thing. What I saw from Levis.
Yeah.
Now you have to include that you got rid of your starting center Taylor, and then Ben Jones, and then Taylor Lewan at tackle. So you're got the rookie tackle Skoronski, and then you're adding more people. You did lose Nate Davis, another guard. So Tennessee's in a weird spot. They're not bad, but they're clearly changing.
But there's a
And
lot that needs to be built up.
there's a lot that needs to be built up. And I think the thing that also gets me, and reason why I have him tier 3, no one traded up for him to get in the first round. So there is no fifth year option. So basically,
Yep.
that means so say Will Levis doesn't play this year. Cool. You still have, it's like, oh, you have 3 years. The issue is you only have 3 years, and most likely you're gonna know. Like,
Yep.
say something happens and Tannehill's still the starter in Levis's second year. That means Levis is only gonna have 2 years as a prove it like situation, and then who knows what the team is gonna look like at that time. So there is a lot of pieces changing, flipping, like flipping in, flipping out, like a very much of a flip flop situation around him to where that can look bad on Levis when it's not actually Levis.
Right. So, I mean, biggest thing with him is prove it. And speaking of prove it, let's go to Hendon Hooker.
Yeah, Hendon Hooker is our last tier three quarterback, the last quarterback we had in our big board. He was drafted 68th overall to the Detroit Lions. And I mean, here's the thing, and especially what we're hearing, especially you probably if you followed the draft, is that he's probably a first rounder if he doesn't tear his ACL. Yes, the age
Well,
is a
here's the other
factor,
thing,
but
too. You're probably looking at a different national champion if he doesn't get hurt.
absolutely.
I'm just going to be very blunt about it. Tennessee was that good before Hendon Hooker and Jalen Hyatt went down.
Yep. And they would have been able to give Georgia a run for their money because they would have hit a couple of shot plays here and there, and so that would have been very interesting to see. So here's the thing we love about Hendon Hooker. His arm is insanely good. And that is going to play a long
Accurate
way.
placement,
Yep.
strength, mechanics, everything.
He's also
Yeah.
experienced, which is I think a lot of people were kind of going off on the fact that he was like 25 as a rookie. I don't consider that to be a problem. That
I
just
don't
means
think
he's
that's a
just ready to
negative for
start.
QB because
It's not a
QBs play
negative.
so much longer in the league.
Exactly. Exactly. I 100% agree with you, E. Like that it should not have taken away from him whatsoever. Now, yeah, does he need the year to heal up? Yes, because of the torn ACL. But he's in a perfect situation to do that. Goff is still playing at a high level. You
Yep.
get Jameer Gibbs and David Montgomery. Your
Yep.
receivers are going to be Jamison Williams, Amon-Ra St. Brown. You have Marvin Jones,
Well,
and then
provided that
Sam
Demo
Laporta.
stops scrambling.
Yeah, provided that y'all don't do it in the team facility, different conversation. And then you get Sam Laporta as your tight end. So
Oh,
we could
I've
be
been hearing good.
yeah, there's been a lot of good
Sam
things
Laporta.
with Laporta. So now you're in a situation to where if he takes it year 2 or year 3,
Um,
man, it's kind of there.
I want to provide some context to why we bring up, hey, this guy looks really good in camp. So the coaching culture atmospheric explanation for that is if there's a guy on your team that everyone comes to the consensus of, I like him, you're going to have a natural bias to run with that player. All
Mhm.
right. As much as we hate it, as much as it's stupid, it's what happens on every single team that's ever existed since sports have been played. So when an entire coaching staff and multiple players say, man, this guy's talented, like I really like playing with him,
Yeah, that
that's your
speaks
indicator
volumes.
that they are biased to giving them reps and letting them play with the guys because everyone has the same first impression and then opinion of him. That's why those stories are so important because if there is a general consensus that the team likes this guy, they are going to play that guy. I'm
Yeah.
sorry, it doesn't make any sense. There's no rhyme or reason to it. It is just what happens every single time without fail. And at the same time, you have a guy like Traylon Burks. If your first impression is this guy can't finish a practice and he doesn't feel like he gives any effort, we don't really like him, that shows on the field as well.
Yep.
So that's why paying attention to the guys you want to draft in your dynasty or redraft, depending on the caliber of the player, you have to be so careful about that because it will affect their playing time.
100%
Just wanted to
is the
give that
truest
quick
statement.
context since we
Yeah.
keep bringing it up of why that's important.
Yeah, and it's listening to the reports, listening to the beat writers. They are there. They
They'll
will
tell you
know
what's
this.
happening. They're
Yeah.
giving you all of the information for free. You just have to follow it. Follow the carrot.
Yep. 100%. Like take the red pill, see what happens. And so, especially with Hendon Hooker,
There we go. So we
there's one more thing we
yes.
want to talk about.
Yes.
I know a lot of people talked about the scheme at Tennessee. yes, it is not that much of an NFL scheme, 100%, because it relies so much on spacing and using the entire width of the field. So the windows won't be as big as you saw with Hendon Hooker, 100%. Here's why I'm not worried about that though. The first thing is that he is still rehabbing. He is going to need a year. He was going to need a year regardless. So at least he's learning and it's not trial by fire.
Yeah.
The second reason why I'm okay with that is that if there's any offense or at least offensive coordinator who can implement different things, it's going to be Ben Johnson. I think Ben Johnson, just because he's not the head coach of anywhere, kind of got quietly like disregarded over the off season, but he was by far he had one of the like a really good season last year as a first time offensive coordinator, and he did his thing. He was putting the Lions in position in place to succeed. Like Amon Ra was doing good. Jamal Williams was doing good, and that is part of that is on coaching. And especially since it was his first year and seeing the success that the Lions did have,
Yep.
I am excited for what that means in terms of developing a quarterback. To me, that's where Hendon Hooker is in the right spot. And because of his experience, he is going to pick this up way faster than I think a lot of people realize. To where
Yeah.
if they wanted to throw him in later in the year, he probably could and he'd probably be good. But I think with year 2, I think he's gonna be
Mhm.
super efficient. You're probably gonna see more deep shots taken by Hendon Hooker because his deep ball accuracy is fantastic. So, we do see tier 3 at the moment because the system is very balanced, so it's not like it's gonna be so quarterback dominant to where, like, all the he's gonna be, like, he's gonna be padding all these, stats, but make no mistake, he's going to be good.
Yeah. And, with that being said, we have one last category that we put that was not on the big board, but this is our Brock Purdy category. So basically, it's the guys who weren't a top pick, but if somebody's going to make a wave like Brock Purdy, it's going to be these guys.
Yep, and we
So,
have a list of 3.
yes. Yes. If you want to list those three off and just kind
Yep.
of general thoughts on them before we close out.
Those 3 are going to be Clayton Tune, Dorian Thompson-Robinson, and Stetson Bennett. So, I think if there's anything, I think Ethan and I are the highest on Clayton Tune being in this category for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I just see him as if they keep having problems in Arizona, and if injuries are still a thing, then he's got enough talent that they can turn to him.
Yeah,
He's not a bad QB. He's just a little bit raw, but he put up good numbers at Houston.
yeah,
Uh,
and the ball does like it flies out of his hand. So
yeah,
he will
he
be
can
able to
spin it.
make the throws. Yeah, he could definitely
He can
spin it.
spin it.
I think the big thing with Tune is especially opportunity. So obviously Kyler was hurt, I believe week 14 last year. So
Yeah.
we have no idea if he will be ready by week 1, which leaves the door open for Clayton too.
So
And
just
if,
something to keep your eye on.
yeah, just someone to keep your eye on. Not saying someone to go get, but it's definitely someone to keep your eye on. Dorian Thompson Robinson from UCLA, uh,
Electric.
electric. We'll see what happens with how they're going to use Deshaun Watson this year, if there's any differences from what they did last year. However, if Deshaun Watson were to ever go down, and we're going to say that it's the AFC North, DTR is a very good quarterback.
And then last one being Stetson Bennett.
Yeah,
He's a winner. He's got experience, like Hendon Hooker does, but we'll see. He's kind of just the biggest we'll see guy ever.
yeah,
Is he really that talented? We're gonna find out. He is Sean McVay.
yeah. We'll find out. I think the biggest thing is just the coach aspect. McVay is obviously we all know how good McVay is. So if there's anyone going to get him ready, it's going to be obviously Sean McVay. Now, the Rams don't have a lot of good options when it comes, like, there is Cooper Kupp, there is Stafford still there. Who knows what's going to
Higby.
happen this year, especially there it
Don't
does
sleep on
seem.
Higby.
Yeah, don't yeah, okay.
Give my man
Higbee,
some respect, please.
yeah, Tyler Higbee, I will not say the running back's name, or no, I'll say it. So they
The
also have
running
Cam
back that doesn't, but does, but does not, but will play anyways.
the running back who scored 41 points on me in the semifinal game, and I don't know how that happened.
Yeah.
That guy, Cam Akers. So there's Cam Akers, there's they've also drafted a couple people. They
And
got
good
rid of
old
Allen
Van
Robinson
Jefferson.
and good old Van Jefferson as well.
Van No Hands.
So here's where it gets interesting. Now we all know the Rams, they, the bottom kind of fell out last year. Everyone
Yeah.
got hurt, and they basically just didn't play anybody. Now, if something similar were to happen again, is why we're bringing up Stetson Bennett's name in the conversation. As far though, out of the three names here, he's probably or at least likely to be our Brock Purdy.
Yeah.
Ethan, I think that's it.
Yeah. That's QBs, man.
Yeah,
That's QBs.
that's rookie month on QBs. I think we went. Even I'm surprised how in depth we went.
Yeah, we were talking before, and it was like, man, I don't know if there's like going to be too much to say because we have such a small amount of QBs. But I think what's happening around them and just the general atmosphere is so interesting for this
Very
class.
interesting.
It's so different from all the other position groups, um, and I'm excited for it. I'm here
Yeah,
for it.
yeah, I'm excited as well. I think there's at least three really good options for your rookie drafts to take. Basically, try to find your next star, and we definitely think there's at least three of them that are going to be in the fantasy conversation for years and years to come. Now,
Yeah, but hit
Ethan,
him with the socials. Oh,
yeah,
oh,
let's hit
last
him.
question?
Yeah, what if you hit him with the socials?
Yeah. So please subscribe. That's our biggest thing right now. We're trying to grow, do a lot of cool stuff. In order to do that, we need y'all's help. So please subscribe. You can also find us on Anchor. You can find us on Spotify, anywhere where you can get podcasts, Apple Podcasts. That's where we're at. Socials being Twitter, Last Place FP, as well as Instagram and Facebook. That's that. Yeah, it's QBs.
Yeah, well done, Ethan. And I guess since I hit you with the socials, I'll hit us with the quote.
No,
Never for oh nope.
no,
You want to take it?
yes.
All
Yeah,
right.
I'm selfish. I'm selfish. You
All
shouldn't have
right,
done
fair
it to
enough.
yourself.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
But before we leave, never forget. Sometimes you're right, a la me, your co-host Ethan, and sometimes you're right. Have a good night.
Have a good one, everybody. See us next week for our wide receivers episode of Rookie Month.